How's your week been going? Hard to believe it's Friday already, and we're getting ready for the weekend here at the table. And I thought I would just take just a few moments, talk about what's coming this weekend here at the Table Church. We're pretty excited about a new Bible Talk series that we're going to launch on Sunday. Before we get to that, though, tomorrow, by the way, if you want the chance to help us out in terms of some house cleaning, tomorrow is another, we do this from time to time, but we have a work day here at the table, and we've got a list of all sorts of items that are kind of like grandpa projects. But we're going to show up tomorrow at 9 o'clock and do that tomorrow. If you'd like to show up and help us out here, that'd be great. It's not all that difficult. I mean, there's some labor involved, but it's just all part of making this facility mission ready. As far as our Bible talks on Sunday, we're starting something a little new. We're going to take a break from the book of Acts. We'll come back to Acts, I think, after the new year. We'll do that again in January. But we're going to be doing something a little different. In fact, we're going to be walking through this particular book. It's called Junk Drawer Jesus by Pastor Matt Popovitz. He's a pastor in the Houston area. And by the way, if you ever get the chance to see him on one of his podcasts, he's a great person to listen to. I glean a lot from Pastor Matt. But this is Junk Drawer Jesus. I'll get to that in a second. I'll tell you a little bit about what this is about. But Sunday we're going to be talking about scales. We live in a world that is full of scales. I know when I go to the doctor, when you go to the doctor, what's the first thing that the nurse's assistant tells you to do? Yeah, that's right. First thing that happens when you walk through that door at the doctor's office is the nurse says, "Get on that scale." What's your reaction? How do you feel when that happens? I know what I'm thinking. I'm not thinking, "Oh yes, I couldn't wait to do this morning. This is my favorite part of the doctor visit." No. I'm thinking, I can't wait till this is over. In fact, I'm thinking, did you know that my clothes add about 7 pounds to whatever number it is that I mean, I'm thinking of all sorts of other things, but that scale is not a happy place to be for a lot of us. And I suppose it's just a reminder of where we're not on the scales. But anyway, scales are constantly measuring us. And those are one of the things, by the way, that are in our junk drawer. I'll get to that in a second. But we're constantly being measured. Sometimes we're measuring ourselves, and that's not always a good idea. In fact, often that's not a good idea because of the way we measure ourselves. And depending on the day, depending on what's going on in your day, when you're measuring yourself or you feel like you're being measured, you're either full of confidence, like, yes, I got this, I'm living up to the standard. Whatever standard either has been set for me or one that I've brought on myself, or we're not a lot. There's no confidence whatsoever. Yeah, we can be full of confidence, saying yes, I'm doing this, I measure up, or the reality, at least for Bresson, is you look in the mirror and like, the guy doesn't measure up. I don't measure up. And again, the scales are also constantly shifting and moving depending on who sets the scale for you. Do you measure up to your spouse's standards? Do you measure up to your kids' standards, your boss's standards, your colleagues' standards? Who's doing the measuring? And that's always, again, a bit of a dicey issue because a lot of times we sit there and think of who is doing the measuring, and then that's not a happy occasion either. Or what about God? God's measurement, God's scales. And I think that, again, that's what we're going to be talking about on Sunday. We have scales, and all that measurement that goes on with us. We'll talk about this more on Sunday, but I'm just setting us up to think there's something that's not quite right about the scales, not quite right about all the measurement going on. And I'm not just talking about the stuff that's negative, at least in terms of the way we self-critique. What I'm talking about is even stuff that is given to us as positives. Like, this is the standard that you're supposed to, or you're expected to live up to. Even good things can be negative. So we're talking about junk drawer Jesus. Scales are found in many, many different junk drawers. And the whole point of Matt's book is the junk drawer is something, and by the way, we all have these. We all have junk drawer, right, in the house. Scales or rulers. Rulers is typically what I had in my junk drawer. Rulers I don't use, by the way. But the junk drawer is things that have accumulated in the junk drawer that we've accumulated over time. We don't always use them. We use some of the things in the junk drawer, but we don't use everything. And a lot of it is we're never going to use it. We just put it there because we thought we might use it. There's all sorts of things. I'm not going to start listing all of those. We'll talk about that on Sunday. But what Pastor Matt is trying to get across is a lot of what is inside our heads, a lot of the way we live our lives, a lot of the way we think about things is a junk drawer. We've accumulated stuff. We've accumulated ways of thinking that aren't helpful. And we don't know where we got them. Some of it's bumper sticker theology. Some of it's wisdom that we got from a grandmother or grandfather. It all sounds really biblical, but in the end, not quite helpful. The scale's one of those things. So we're going to talk about that on Sunday. So I encourage you. Join us on Sunday. Be here at the table at 10:30 on Sunday, and we're going to be talking about Jesus. We're going to be talking about our junk drawers. You've heard me talk about Mythbusters. Really, a lot of what Pastor Matt's talking about in his book is some of the stuff that we cover in our Mythbusters series, in terms of things that we've been told are true about the Bible and the way even some verses are interpreted in the Bible. But in the end, it's a misunderstanding of what's going on in the Bible. And ultimately then it's not helpful in the way we're thinking about Jesus and his work for us, his love for us, his grace for us, and all that. And that tends to go missing. And again, that's another point that Pastor Matt is making in his books, talking about grace. Grace always seems to go missing with whatever is in our junk drawer theology. The things that we picked up along the way, the little witticisms and the pet phrases that we use, the plaques on the walls, the bumper stickers, the memes on the internet, all of it. It all contributes to ways that we think about God that aren't healthy. So we're talking about that on Sunday. Be here at the table, 10:30. We're going to have a great time. And like I always say, Jesus is always here. He promised. He's going to be here in word and sacrament. And so I encourage you, take some time, take an hour and a half of your time on Sunday, and be here with us. I encourage you and join us in this series. We got these books, by the way. If you want to join us, contact me. I'll get you the book, and we'll do this together. So hope you're having a great Friday, and hope that you're going to have a good weekend. I know I'm not going to say much of anything about this right now, but I know the things that have come into my email and my text and the stuff coming into my phone from questions people are asking. I know it is it's a difficult moment right now, but there's no better place to be for these difficult moments than hearing something from Jesus and hearing how much he loves us, how much grace he gives us, and even talking about things. And we can look at all the stuff that has happened in the past week, actually the last 10 days. And a lot of stuff that I'm reading, a lot of stuff I'm seeing is part of our junk drawers. It's not really a good way to think about all these things and all that. Some of it is, some of it isn't. But our response and the way we think about God and the way we think about Jesus and all this, a lot of times is affected negatively by things that we've picked up. And people make it sound like it's from the Bible, and a lot of times it's not. So, again, be here on Sunday. We're going to be talking about Jesus. Jesus is everything. He's everything for us. He's what we need in these moments. The do's and the don'ts. You hear me say this all the time. Do's and the don'ts are helpful. They help us frame our lives. But in the end, they're not going to help us, even in these moments. What we need to hear is Jesus' word of grace for us again, in his word and in his sacrament. So, see you Sunday. Until then, remember this, that Jesus has you. He always, always has you.